The emperor fears my father will rebel, so he lets me choose from among his 3 princes. Inside the imperial study, the emperor sat upon the dragon throne, wearing a benevolent smile. General Su has guarded the borders for 20 years, bringing great comfort to my heart. I hear your daughter is just 16 and yet unwed. Among my 3 sons, you may choose whichever you please. My father, Su Taizhan, stood to the side, his face ashen, his fists clenched tight. With 200,000 troops in his hands, the emperor cannot sleep at ease. He intends to use a marriage to bind the Su family tightly to the imperial family's war chariot. I stood in the center of the hall, looking at the 3 princes before me. The first prince, Xiao Qingyu, gentle and refined, gave me a slight nod. The second prince, Xiao Qingjin, wore a smile, his gaze lingering on me for a moment, sending a chill down my spine. The third prince, Xiao Qingyan, stood listlessly at the very edge, not even casting a glance at me. Just then, a line of subtitles suddenly flashed before my eyes. Eldest Prince Xiao Qingyu died of illness 3 years later. Main wife buried with him. I blinked. The subtitles didn't disappear, and a second line popped up. Second Prince Xiao Qingjin, after ascending the throne, slaughter all the meritorious ministers, and execute the entire Su family. My fingers froze in midair. The third line of subtitles slowly emerged. Third Prince Xiao Qingyan, homosexual, never took a concubine in his life, died a natural death. Short-lived ones cannot be selected. Those with a human face but a beast's heart are not to be chosen. Of the cut sleeve, at the very least, I can survive. I pointed my finger toward the edge. Him. The entire hall fell silent. The emperor was stunned. The first prince was stunned. The second prince's smile froze on his face. The third prince, Xiao Qingyan, finally raised his head and glanced at me. That look clearly said, "Are you sick?" My father growled softly behind me. "You choose the third one?" I turned back and smiled at him. "Father, I have a good eye." The emperor gave a dry cough, the smile on his face deepening. "Miss Su is indeed unique. Qingyan, why haven't you thanked him yet?" Xiao Qingyan stood there motionless, his voice as bland as plain water. "I respectfully accept the decree." 3 words, perfunctory in the extreme. I actually felt reassured instead. A husband with no interest in women is far better than a husband who wants my life. Leaving the imperial study, my father walked ahead, his steps heavy and hurried. "Su Yanzhao, explain this to me." "Father, the first prince is frail and sickly, the second prince is too calculating, and the third prince is the least troublesome." My father stopped in his tracks and turned to stare at me. "The third son is gay. The whole capital knows it. If you marry him, will you live like a widow?" I smiled. Living like a widow is better than being a real widow. My father was left speechless by my retort. After a long while, he sighed deeply. "Suit yourself." The imperial edict bestowing the marriage arrived at the Su residence that very day. The news spread through the capital even faster than the edict itself. That evening, my cousin, Song Yaoyao, came over. She sat in my room, wiping away her tears with a handkerchief. "Yan Zhao, why did you choose the third prince? He is a cut sleeve." "I know. And you still chose him?" I peeled a grape and stuffed it into my mouth. "Yao Yao, tell me the truth. Did the second prince come looking for you?" Song Yaoyao's hand paused. "He sent you to persuade me to change my mind, didn't he?" Song Yaoyao's face turned pale. I peeled another grape. "Go back and tell the second prince the imperial decree has been issued and cannot be changed." Song Yaoyao stood up, biting her lip and staring at me for a long while. "Yan Zhao, I truly have your best interests at heart. I know." I smiled as I escorted her to the door. "So think of yourself as well. Don't get on the second prince's boat." After Song Yaoyao left, Cui Zhu stepped out from behind the screen. "Miss, how did you know the second prince was behind it?" "The second prince was in the imperial study today, and the way he looked at me was off. He assumed I would choose him, and the emperor favored him as well. But when I suddenly chose the third, All his plans fell through. Cui Zhu shivered. Will the second prince retaliate against us? He will. I put down the grapes and wiped my hands. That is why I chose the third. The third has no power in the court and no factions. The emperor does not fear him. Marrying him, the Su family will actually be the safest. Suizhu opened her mouth, then closed it again. Miss, then your lifelong matter. The lifelong matter is staying alive. I blew out the candle. Staying alive is more important than anything. The wedding date was set for 3 months later. Over these 3 months, jokes about me have spread through every tea house and tavern in the capital. General Su's daughter, and among 3 imperial princes, she picked the one who prefers men. TSK. Is she stupid or what? I hear the third prince keeps quite a few male favorites at his manor. If Miss Su marries him, she won't even find a rival when it comes to vying for favor. Roaring laughter. Every time Suizhu went out and came back, she would come back fuming with a red face. I couldn't care less. Let them laugh. The more I laughed, the more the second prince would think me foolish, and the less likely he would be to see me as a threat. 3 days before the wedding, the palace sent elderly matrons to teach me the proper etiquette. Leading them was matriarch Wang, whose face was longer than a horse's. Miss Su, this old servant served the late empress and has seen much of the world. Although you are marrying a prince, you should also be well aware of the situation at the third prince's manor. What's going on? Mama Wang lowered her voice. There is someone named Shen Jinghong by the third prince's side. He has been with his highness for 5 years, and they are inseparable. When you marry over there, you must be patient and yielding in all things. Do not get into a conflict with him. I nodded. Thank you for the reminder, Mama. After Mama Wang left, Suizhu became anxious. Miss, who is this Shen Jinghong? Don't tell me there really is, by the third prince's side? So what if there is? I tested the sleeves of my wedding dress. I'm not marrying him to fight for favor. As long as the third prince doesn't get in the way of my eating and sleeping, he can be close to whomever he likes. Cui Zhu was on the verge of tears. Miss, you're only 16. What's wrong with 16? Being able to see the situation clearly at 16 is better than being muddled at 60. On the day of the grand wedding, the red dowry procession stretched for 10 miles. The emperor gave them plenty of face. The greater the pomp, the tighter the chains. I sat inside the bridal sedan chair, the red veil obscuring my vision, leaving me able to hear only the bustle outside. The sedan chair stopped. Someone lifted the curtain and extended a hand. That hand was slender with well-defined joints and felt cool to the touch. I reached out my hand and was guided out of the sedan chair. During the ceremony, Xiao Qingyan stood beside me, without a trace of joy about him. First bow to heaven and earth, he moved. Second bow to the parents, he moved again. Bow to each other, I turned to face him. Beneath the veil, I could only see the hem of his moon-white robe. Immaculate, without a speck of dust. Just like this person, so clean that he seemed entirely out of place in the imperial palace. After being escorted into the bridal chamber, Suizhu was stopped outside the door. I was the only one left in the room. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for a quarter of an hour. Another quarter of an hour passed. Only after the banquet outside had dispersed did Xiao Qingyan push the door open and enter. The scent of alcohol was faint. He hadn't drunk much. The footsteps stopped in front of me. I won't lift the veil. His voice was cool, devoid of malice, merely stating a fact. There is food on the table. Help yourself if you are hungry. The east wing has been tidied up. That is where you will stay. You do not need to come to this main house. He paused for a moment. I know why you chose me. We each take what we need, and we do not interfere with each other. Footsteps faded into the distance. The door was closed. I lifted the red veil myself. Red candlelight flickered throughout the room, illuminating the empty space. I walked to the table, sat down, picked up the chopsticks, and picked up a piece of osmanthus cake for myself. It's quite sweet. Life is just about living your own life. What's wrong with that? On the 3rd day after marrying into the third prince's manor, I finally met the legendary Shen Jinghong. He really is good-looking. With sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes, a long sword at his waist. Standing in the courtyard, he naturally exuded a heroic air. Seeing me, he slightly cupped his hands. Miss Sue, not calling me princess, but Miss Sue. Interesting. Young Master Shin. I returned the courtesy. I heard you have known His Highness for 5 years? 6 years. He corrected me. Then you know His Highness better than I do. In the future, I will have to rely on you, young Master Shin, for matters in the household. Shin Jinghong sized me up, as if he hadn't expected me to say that. You don't care? Care about what? About my relationship with His Highness. I thought for a moment. What does your relationship have to do with me? Shin Jinghong remained silent for a long while. You are not like those women. Which women? Previously, the emperor also bestowed beauties to the manor. Every one of them wailed and made a scene, clamoring for the highness's heart. In the end, they were all sent away. I have no interest in anyone's heart. I pulled an account book from my sleeve. I care more about this. What? The accounts from your highness's residence. The third prince's residence allocates 800 taels of silver each month, but there are only records for 400 taels in expenditures. Young Master Shin, where are the other 400 taels? Shin Jinghong's expression changed. This is something I wanted to ask on the very first day. I held back for 3 days. But today I simply can't take it anymore. I opened the ledger and pointed it out to him. Daily necessities cost 120 taels a month, servants' monthly wages 80 taels, and miscellaneous expenses 200 taels. Where exactly did this miscellaneous money go? Shin Jinghong stared at me for 3 seconds, then turned and walked away. A stick of incense later, Xiao Qingyan arrived. He stood opposite me, his expression very indifferent. You looked through the accounts of my manor? I am the princess. It is only right and proper for the mistress of the house to manage the accounts. I told you, we do not interfere with each other. I will not interfere in your highness's private matters. But when it comes to money, I must interfere. He frowned slightly. I pushed the ledger over to him. Your highness, someone is embezzling your money. 400 taels a month, and over 6 years. That amounts to nearly 30,000 taels. You may not care, but I do. Xiao Qingyan lowered his head and glanced at the ledger. He fell silent for a moment, then said 2 words. Investigate. The moment the door clicked shut, I heard Shin Jinghong ask him outside. You're letting her investigate? Xiao Qingyan's answer was brief. She is right. The investigation of the accounts took 7 days. I summoned all 36 servants of the third prince's manor, one by one, for questioning. Steward Zhao Fu was the first who could no longer sit still. Princess, these years the accounts have all been managed by your humble servant. There has never been a mistake, never been a mistake. I slammed a stack of receipts onto the table. Last December, the household purchased 300 caddies of winter charcoal at 51 per caddy. What is the market price? 21. Steward Zhao, how much kickback did you take? Zhao Fu's forehead began to sweat. Your Highness, look into this matter. The price of winter charcoal has risen. I had Shui Zhu go to 3 charcoal shops yesterday to ask for prices. Even the most expensive was only 25 won. Zhao Fu knelt down. Spare my life. Your Highness, spare your life? That can be arranged. But you must account for every single tael of silver you've embezzled over these past 6 years, and make up the shortfall within 3 days. If you fail to do so, I will hand you over to the authorities. Zhao Fu scrambled out on his hands and knees. That very night, Xiao Qingyan paid an unprecedented visit to the East Wing. He leaned against the doorframe, watching me as I reconciled the accounts by lamplight. Zhao Fu has been with me for 8 years. Just because he's been with me for 8 years, he can steal your money? I don't care about the money. Your Highness may not care, but I do. I didn't even look up. You get 800 taels a month, the least among all the princes. The first prince gets 1,500, and the second prince gets 2,000. It wasn't much to begin with, and the servants still skim off the top. I married into this family to live a life. not to be taken advantage of. Xiao Qingyan didn't speak. He stood for a while, then left. The next day, Zhao Fu returned 1,000 taels of silver and kowed out 100 times in the courtyard. I didn't drive him away. Keeping him around is more useful than replacing him with someone new. A person with something to hide is actually the most obedient. Cui Zhu whispered to me, "Miss, all the servants in the manor are afraid of you now." Being afraid is exactly right. It has been half a month since I married into the third prince's manor, and I have exchanged fewer than 30 words with Xiao Qingyan. He leaves early and returns late every day. Where he goes, I don't know. What he does, I don't care. I have sorted out the household accounts, reorganized the kitchen, and planted vegetables in the garden. Yes, growing vegetables. Qin Jinghong watched me squatting in the field digging up the soil. His expression complicated. You are the daughter of a general, the principal consort of a prince. Can a prince's principal consort not grow vegetables? I can. This plot faces south and gets plenty of sunlight. If we plant some pak choi, we can eat it in a month. We'll save money on groceries and buy a few winter clothes for the household. Qin Jinghong squatted down to take a look. Do you really only care about silver? It's not just about the silver. I dusted the dirt off my hands. I also care about having enough to eat and being warm. He stood up, took a few steps, then looked back. Do you know that the second prince's men have been keeping a close watch on this residence? The shovel in my hands didn't stop. I know. There's a person squatting in that old locust tree outside the east wall. They've been there for 3 days. Qin Jinghong's pupils constricted. You saw them? My father leads troops into battle. I grew up in the military camp. Just a few spies. That night, the person in the old locust tree disappeared. Qin Jinghong took care of it. When he reported to me the next day, his tone was different from before. Su, Your Highness. He called me princess consort for the first time. I smiled and said nothing. Trust between people is never established through mere words. In the first month after marrying into the third prince's manor, an edict arrived from the palace. On the Empress Dowager's birthday, all the imperial princes brought their families into the palace for the banquet. Su Weizhu panicked. Miss, our jewelry and clothes aren't grand enough. Won't we be laughed at if we go? So what if we get laughed at? Marrying a prince who prefers men is already enough of a laughingstock. One more thing won't make a difference. Xiao Qingyan sent someone to deliver a dress and a box of jewelry. The dress was newly made. The fabric was good, and the pattern was simple. The jewelry consisted of a few plain silver pieces, not worth much money. Cui Zhu felt so wrong that the rims of her eyes turned red. I put on my dress and jewelry, and took a look in the bronze mirror. Very nice. Clean and neat. On the day I entered the palace, carriages from the various mansions lined up in a row. The first prince's consort wore a palace robe embroidered with a phoenix in red gold, with a complete set of ruby ornaments in her hair. The second prince's consort was even more outrageous. Her magnificent brocade robe adorned with 80 eastern pearls, exuding an air of grandeur with every step she took. As I descended from the carriage, everyone's eyes were fixed on me, and then they laughed. Is that the daughter of the Su family? Dressed like that, she looks like she's from some insignificant household. What kind of pomp can there be in marrying the third prince? That is an idle prince who doesn't even have a proper official post. I walked behind Xiao Qingyan, my expression unchanged. He walked in front, his expression unchanged as well. The two of us walked into the Taiha Hall like 2 blocks of wood. The Empress Dowager sat at the head of the room, beckoning with a smile. Third son's wife, come over and let me take a look at you. I stepped forward and paid my respects. The Empress Dowager took my hand and looked me up and down. What a fine child. Truly handsome. Just a bit on the thin side. I shall have some tonics sent from the palace to your residence later. Consort Lu, the second prince's wife, interjected from the side. Her Majesty is most affectionate. However, third sister-in-law's attire is a touch too plain. Surely it isn't that the third prince's household is short on funds? She covered her mouth and chuckled. Several of the ladies in waiting nearby laughed along. I lowered my head to look at my own dress. then raised my head to look at the eastern pearls adorning Lady Lu's hair. Second sister-in-law is joking. His Highness said that Her Majesty the Dowager dislikes extravagance. So I deliberately chose something simple and plain. The Dowager Empress patted my hand. Third daughter-in-law is right. I do not like flashy things. Lu's smile froze on her face. After the birthday banquet began, I was seated at the very end. Normal. The third prince holds no real power. So naturally, his rank is at the back. I hadn't been sitting long when someone leaned close to my ear. Third sister-in-law, sitting so far away. You can't even see the Empress Dowager's face clearly, can you? It was the first prince's consort, Nei Zhao. Her tone held no malice. It sounded more like sympathy. It doesn't matter. The food is all the same. Zhao smiled and said nothing more. It was a woman beside her who spoke, consort he. The secondary consort of the second prince. I hear there aren't even a few decent maids in the third prince's household. Does third sister-in-law wash clothes and cook every day herself? She doesn't wash clothes or cook, but she has planted a few vegetable beds. Heesher's laughter was sharp and piercing. The crown prince's principal wife gardening? If word of this gets out, it truly would be a sensational oddity. Several people at the table began to whisper amongst themselves. I picked up a piece of food with my chopsticks and chewed slowly. No rush. On occasions like this, the one who rushes is the loser. Halfway through the banquet, the Empress Dowager had a longevity peach served. Each imperial consort had to step forward to offer a toast and speak auspicious words. The first princess consort spoke a string of flowery words. The second princess consort recited a birthday poem. When it was my turn, the whole room fell silent, waiting to see the joke. I raised my wine cup and walked before the Empress Dowager. May the Empress Dowager's fortune be as boundless as the eastern sea, and her life as enduring as the southern mountains. Just these 8 words. The Empress Dowager paused for a moment, then laughed aloud. Satisfying. I have lived for 60 years and grown tired of all those convoluted words. The 8 words from third son's wife are the most honest. The Empress Dowager slipped a jade bangle from her wrist and personally placed it on my hand. This is a reward for you. I lowered my head to look at the bangle, entirely emerald green with excellent translucency, worth more than the 80 dong pearls on the second prince's consorts had combined. The second prince consort's face turned green. On the way back from the palace, Cui Zhu was so excited she could barely get her words out. Miss. The bracelet bestowed by the Empress Dowager. It's worth at least 5,000 taels. Shoo. There was someone outside the carriage curtain. Upon returning to the residence, I locked the bracelet in a box without making a sound. That night, Xiao Qingyan came to the east wing again. This time he did not lean against the door frame, but walked in and sat at the table. The Empress Dowager rarely bestows gifts upon others. Perhaps she feels pity for me. No. He looked at me. The Empress Dowager is protecting you. My hand paused for a moment. With the Empress Dowager's bracelet on your wrist, no one in the harem or the imperial court would dare touch you. She is telling everyone the third prince's consort is under her protection. I didn't expect him to tell me all this. Your Highness certainly sees things clearly. I'm not foolish. I never said your Highness was foolish. He fell silent again. After a while, he spoke. The second prince will give you trouble. I know. His people are already looking into the Su family's old accounts. My heart sank, but I didn't show it on my face. What are they looking into? The matter of your father planting his loyalists in the Northwest Army. The Emperor has been turning a blind eye. But if the second prince presents the evidence in the court, what do you mean by telling me this? Xiao Qingyan stood up. Each takes what they need. You protect the Su family. As for what I want, you will know later. He walked to the door and paused. The Empress Dowager wears that bracelet every day. The door closed. I sat there, my mind racing through countless possibilities. This person, is he really just a carefree prince who stays out of worldly affairs? 3 days after the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, another decree arrived from the palace. The Emperor ordered the second prince, Xiao Qingjin, to preside over the investigation of the draft regarding the Northwest Army's provisions. Sueju's hands were trembling when she came in with the news. Miss, The second prince is going to investigate the grain and fodder accounts of the Northwest Army. Doesn't that mean they're coming for my father? I set down my teacup and stood up. Sui Zhu, prepare a set of clothes for me to go out. I'm returning to the Su Manor. In the study of the Su Manor, my father, Su Taizhan, sat in a master's chair, his body as towering as an iron tower. Father, is there a problem with the provisions accounts? I've been fighting wars for 20 years. How could the provisions accounts be problem-free? My heart sank halfway. How big is the problem? The year before last, there was a severe drought, and the army was short of food. I embezzled 200,000 taels of silver allocated by the Ministry of Works for building the border walls to buy grain. The grain fed the soldiers, and we won the war. But the shortfall in silver, it was never made up. 200,000 taels. 200,000 taels. If the second prince gets hold of this leverage, my father slammed his hand on the table. Worst comes to worst. We rebel. Father. I lowered my voice. You have 200,000 troops, and the emperor has 400,000. If we really fight, both sides will suffer. And in the end, the barbarians to the north will be the ones to benefit. My father fell silent. Dad, give me 3 days. What can you do? I have a way. I actually don't have a way. But I cannot let my father act on impulse. After leaving the Su Manor, I sat in the carriage and thought for a long time. 200,000 taels. I cannot fill the gap. Beg the emperor? That is tantamount to handing him leverage. Begging the Empress Dowager? The Empress Dowager can protect me for a moment, but she cannot protect the Su family. By the time I returned to the third prince's manor, it was already dark. Xiao Qingyan sat in the front hall, a solitary lamp burning on the table. Seeing me enter, he said something I never expected. I will make up for the sum of silver your father embezzled. I stood there, thinking I had heard wrong. What did your highness say? 200,000 taels. Within 3 days. Fill the hole in the name of supplementary funding from the Ministry of Works. Even if the second prince investigates, he won't find anything. Where did you get 200,000 taels? Xiao Qingyan looked at me but did not answer the question. And the conditions? I asked. One condition. Speak. I want the authority to mobilize the Su family's 200,000 troops. The air froze. This was his true purpose. It has been from the very beginning. The emperor asked me to choose a prince in order to control the Su family. I chose Xiao Qingyan, thinking I had chosen the safest one. Yet this third imperial prince, labeled ashomosexual, idle, and incompetent, opened his mouth and asked for an army of 200,000. You are not homosexual. I never said I was. Everyone says you are. You believe everything everyone says? I shut my mouth. After a long while, I spoke. I can't give you the authority to transfer, but we can discuss things when they come up. Does discuss mean you can refuse? Right. He stared at me for a long time. The lights flickered, casting his face half in light and half in shadow. Aren't you afraid that my purpose is even more dangerous than the second prince's? Afraid. But I have no other choice. He stood up and walked over to me. I took a step back, my back bumping against the doorframe. He pulled a silver note from his sleeve and stuffed it into my hand. 200,000 taels. It's not a loan from you. It's the deposit I paid to the Su family. The moment his fingers touched my palm, I confirmed one thing. This man's hands are not cold. They are hot. The reason his hands were cold that night in the bridal chamber was that he deliberately made himself appear distant. Clutching the silver notes, I withdrew from the front hall. Upon returning to the east wing, Cui Zhu was startled by the look on my face. Miss? It's all right. I sat down, locked the silver banknotes into the box, and placed them alongside the Empress Dowager's emerald bangle. Sui Zhu, how many faces must a person hide before they are truly dangerous? Sui Zhu shook her head. I can't see through him now. It's only right that you can't see through it. Sui Zhu said cautiously. Miss, haven't you never let anyone see through you either? Once the silver was in place, the investigation into the corruption in the Northwest Army's grain supply yielded no evidence. The second prince knelt in the imperial study for half the day and was scolded by the emperor. Qingjin, I ordered you to investigate the case, not to use it as a pretext to pursue your own agenda. General Su is my trusted aide. Do not harbor any improper thoughts. Xiao Qingyan told me this. His sources of information are extensive, far more extensive than a leisurely prince should have. I began to pay attention to his movements. He went out early every day. Not to the brothels, not to the tea houses, but to a bookshop in the south of the city. That bookshop is called San Yutang. I had Suizhu go and make some inquiries. On the surface, it sells books, but in secret, it's an intelligence hub. The third prince has been running it for 6 years. For 6 years, he played the fool, and everyone thought he only loved men and not the throne. In reality, his intelligence network had already extended to the 6 ministries. The night I found this out, I couldn't sleep. Not out of fear. I was calculating whether the bargaining chips in my hand were enough to negotiate with him. Early the next morning, I went to the front hall on my own initiative. Xiao Qingyan was drinking tea. Your Highness, I have investigated San Yutang. The hand holding the teacup did not tremble in the slightest. Find anything? Plenty. Specifically, among the 6 ministries, the Ministry of Personnel has 3 of your men, the Ministry of Revenue has 2, and the Ministry of War has 1. The Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Works have none for now. The Ministry of Rights has 1, but it is not very secure. The teacup was set down. Qin Jinghong slipped in through the side door, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Xiao Qingyan raised a hand to stop him. You've found all this out. What do you plan to do? Cooperate. Cooperate? Your Highness wants military power, and I have it. Your Highness lacks manpower, but my Su family has been operating in the military for 20 years. We have plenty of people. We complement each other. Your conditions? The Su family remains safe, and I remain safe. Regardless of who ascends the dragon throne in the future, the Su family retains 30% of its military power, and the rest is surrendered to the imperial court. Xiao Qingyan fell silent. Qin Jinghong grew anxious at his side. Your Highness, yes. He agreed faster than I expected. You know what I ultimately want. He looked at me. I know. That chair. Not afraid? Compared to the second prince taking the throne and slaughtering my entire family. If you take the throne, I can still live. It's worth it. After formally allying with Xiao Qingyan, days became busy. He handles the layout in the court, and I take care of the rear. The rear guard is all about silver and connections. The third prince's manor is poor, but the Su family is not. I wrote a letter to my father, asking him to secretly transfer 3,000 taels over. I didn't hand this money over to Xiao Qingyan, but instead used it to do something far more useful. Zhao Wanjin, the largest grain merchant in the capital, had collaborated with the Su family on military provisions several times. I treated him to a meal. Mr. Zhao, I heard the Ministry of Revenue plans to establish 3 new granaries in Jiangnan this year. Zhao Wanjin's eyes lit up. The princess is well informed. This is no small deal, but it is difficult to get through to the Ministry of Revenue. I'll pave the way for you. Truly? Truly. But I have a condition. Please speak, Your Highness. I want a 10% share in the operating rights of these 3 granaries. I won't put up any silver. Only my connections. Zhao Wanjin did the math and agreed. A 10% share would bring me an income of 2,000 taels a year. 2,002 isn't much, but small amounts add up. More importantly, grain is a hard currency in wartime. Holding on to grain merchants is like holding on to a way out. Cui Zhu watched me write in the ledger and couldn't help but ask, Miss, what exactly is your relationship with His Highness? Partners. Partners? Then what about husband and wife? My pen paused for a moment. Sui Zhu, marriage is a matter between 2 people. A partnership is a matter between 2 families. First settle the family accounts. Then we can talk about anything else. That night, as I left the accounting room, I passed through the garden. Under the moonlight, Xiao Qingyan stood by the pond. Qin Jinghong was not by his side. He looked back and saw me, nodding slightly. Have you finished with the accounts? I have. Does your highness know about the matter with Zhao Wanjin? I know. You did very well. It was the first time he praised me. His tone was nothing special, as if evaluating a subordinate's work. But for some reason, my heart skipped a beat. I nodded, turned around, and walked away. Brisk walking. Don't look back. The second prince's grain proposal hit a wall, but he did not back down. The second trick is even more insidious. This morning, the streets and alleys of the capital were all abuzz with one topic. Have you heard? General Su's daughter is growing vegetables at the third prince's manor. The third prince's household is so poor they can't even afford a meal. Really? Can a prince's manor really be that poor? Don't know about being poor or not, but it's a sure thing that the third prince's consort is doing a grain business with Zhao Wanjin. For a proper main consort of a prince to go out and show her face doing business, what kind of precedent is that? TSK. On the afternoon the news reached the palace. The emperor summoned Xiao Qingyan. When Xiao Qingyan returned, his expression was as usual. I stopped him. What did he say? His Majesty said that the principal consort of a prince may not engage in commerce, as it would compromise the dignity of the imperial family. Then what about Zhao Wanjin's business? You find someone else to be the front. Who? Qin Jinghong. He has an identity out there. Qin San, a cloth merchant in the south of the city. He used that identity to connect with Zhao Wanjin. I paused for a moment. He had planned it long ago. No, he had already planned it when I was talking with Zhao Wanjin. He was merely waiting for the emperor to make this move, so he could take the opportunity to sever their overt ties, leaving the second prince with no concrete evidence. Your Highness plays a deep game. Not deep. It is simply that the second prince is too impatient. After saying this, he took a few steps toward the front hall, then stopped. Next time you do something like this, let me know first. Why? So I can arrange an exit strategy in advance. If you shoulder it alone and something goes wrong, I won't even have a chance to fix it. His tone was flat, as if discussing a routine matter, but the word fix lingered in my mind for a long time. After the grain business was moved underground, things were peaceful for 2 months. During these 2 months, I did 3 things. First, I improved the meals at the third prince's residence from barely scraping by to having fish and meat. Second, I built a small infirmary in the residence and found a retired imperial physician to run it. Third, on my father's behalf, I contacted 3 veteran generals in the capital and won over 2 civil officials. Xiao Qingyan's secret network spread across the 6 ministries, while my network of connections spread through the military. The 2 nets slowly began to intertwine. That afternoon, an unexpected guest arrived from the palace. Lady Lu, the second prince's consort, accompanied by 8 maids and 4 matrons. She sat in the front hall of the third prince's manor with great fanfare. When Suizhu announced her arrival, I was in the backyard drying medicinal herbs. Has the second prince's consort arrived? Yes. She says she is here for a visit. I dusted the medicinal powder from my hands and changed into clothes suitable for receiving guests. By the time I entered the front hall, Madame Lu had already drunk half her tea. Third sister-in-law, long time no see. Your visit brings great honor to our humble home. You are too polite. Madame Lu set down her teacup, her smile as standard as if it were carved. I came today because there is something I would like to discuss with you. Third sister-in-law. What plans? Next month is the Queen Mother's birthday, and every household must send birthday gifts. I heard that you are short on money, so I came specifically to ask, would you like some help? Support. That sounds very nice. It hasn't even been 3 months since the scene at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet last year, when she publicly humiliated me. Thank you for your kindness. Second sister-in-law. However, I have already made arrangements for the birthday gift. Oh, what arrangement? You'll know when the time comes. Second sister-in-law. Lu Shi's smile faded a fraction. She looked around, her gaze sweeping over the simple furniture. Third sister-in-law. Let me speak frankly. Marrying the third prince was a slight to you to begin with. But living in the capital, You must keep up appearances. On the Qianqiu festival, birthday gifts from every household will be displayed for the Empress Dowager to inspect. If your gift is too shabby, it won't just be your face that is lost, but General Sue's. She stood up and smoothed her cuffs. I will have someone send over 2 bolts of shoe brocade for you to use as you please. Just take it as a small token of affection from your second sister-in-law. With that, she led a large group of people away in a grand procession. Cui Zhu was so angry that her face turned red. What does the second princess consort mean? Did she come here deliberately to mock us? Not just to mock us. I sat down and poured away the tea Lady Lu hadn't finished drinking. She is here to gather information. Gather information about what? Whether I have money, how much I have, and where it was spent. The second prince wants to know the ins and outs of the third prince's residence. I turned the empty teacup over, and there was clearly a small mark on the bottom. Cui Zhu gasped. She made a mark on the teacup? She didn't do it. It was the maid she brought with her. She tampered with things while we were changing the tea set. This kind of secret mark is used in the martial arts world to pass messages. Her people are probably still waiting outside the residence. I ordered someone to put this teacup back exactly as it was. Don't make a scene. Let them think we haven't discovered it. 10 days before the Qianqiu festival, I began preparing the birthday gift. I won't buy shoe brocade, and I won't buy jewelry. I made something, an embroidered screen. I embroidered it myself. When my mother was alive, she taught me Su embroidery. Her craftsmanship was the finest in Jiangnan, and I learned about 70 or 80% of it. For 10 days and 10 nights, stitch by stitch, she embroidered a picture of 100 butterflies weaving through flowers. Cui Zhu was speechless after seeing it. Qin Jinghong happened to pass by, took a glance, and stood there for a long time. How much is this craftsmanship worth? It matters not how much the craftsmanship is worth. What matters is the sentiment. On the day of the Qianqiu festival, birthday gifts from the various mansions were displayed on both sides of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. The first prince's manor presented a piece of South Sea coral. The second prince's manor presented a complete set of Hotan jade ruby. Now it was the third prince's residence's turn. The moment the eunuch unfolded the embroidered screen, the entire hall fell silent. 108 butterflies, varying in size and color, some flying and some perching, were lifelike. The patterns on their wings were created using my mother's unique silk splitting technique, where a single silk thread is split into 32 strands, with the finest parts even thinner than a hair. The Empress Dowager stood up from her seat. She walked over to the embroidered screen, bent down, and examined it for a long time. Is this the Su family's split silk embroidery? In reply to your majesty, it is indeed. It was created by my late mother. I am untalented and have only learned the basics. The Empress Dowager turned her head to look at me, her eyes slightly rimmed with red. Your mother, Nei Shin, once entered the palace to embroider a peony screen for the late empress. Until her passing, the late empress always kept it hanging in her bedchamber. A hush fell over the hall. The Empress Dowager took my hand and patted it gently. A good child. This birthday gift, I accept. She glanced at the coral and the jade ruby nearby, her tone indifferent. Let the Imperial Household Department keep those too. Hang this embroidered screen in my sleeping quarters. Lu's face turned pale. After the Qianqiu festival, the winds of change swept through the capital. Those who used to call the third prince's consort shabby and pitiful have now changed their tune. The Empress Dowager hung the third prince's consort's embroidered screen in her sleeping quarters. That honor is worth far more than any gold or silver jewels. I heard the third prince's consort's mother is an embroiderer from Jiangnan, with superb craftsmanship. He has the ability. He's just keeping a low profile. The wind has changed, and people are coming to curry favor at the door. The first to arrive was Lady Qian, the wife of the Vice Minister of Revenue. She brought a box of bird's nest and sat smiling in the front hall. The princess's embroidery skills are the finest in the capital. My good-for-nothing daughter wants to learn embroidery. Could I possibly ask the princess to give her some guidance? I dare not presume to give guidance. If Madame Qian does not mind, she may have your daughter come over on the 1st of every month. That would be wonderful. After Madame Qian left, the wife of the director in the Ministry of Works arrived. Next was the mother of the secretary in the Ministry of Rights. Within 3 days, 6 ladies of rank came to call. Suizhu counted the invitation cards, beaming with joy. "Miss, we are finally no longer being left out in the cold. Don't get your hopes up too soon." I put away the post. Half of these people are here out of a genuine desire to make connections, and half are here to scout us out. What we need to do is figure out who can be useful and who we need to guard against. That night, I drew up a list and presented it to Xiao Qingyan. He read it twice. The Qian family's husband is in the Ministry of Revenue, in charge of salt tax. You want to win him over? It is not about winning over, but about understanding. How much of the salt tax goes into the national treasury each year? And how much goes into the second prince's pocket? Does your highness wish to know? He folded the list and tucked it into his sleeve. You are becoming more and more like a strategist. I was never a mere pretty face to begin with. He stood up to leave, but paused at the doorway for a moment. He has been pausing at the doorway a lot lately. You stitched that embroidered screen for the Thousand Autumns Festival for 10 days and 10 nights. Barely closing your eyes. Your highness even knows about this? There are only 30-some people in the household. I know who sneezes. After saying this, he left. Suizhu whispered behind him. His highness is paying more and more attention to the Mississippi don't talk nonsense. Boo, he only cares about my usefulness. Get a grip. Even so, I retracted my hand into my sleeve and rubbed my palm. Just now, when he said that, my palms were sweating. Annoying. Autumn has arrived, and a major event has occurred in the capital. The northern barbarians invaded the border, capturing 3 cities in a row. The imperial court is in an uproar. The emperor urgently convened a court session to decide on the commander for the expedition. The second prince was the first to step forward. Father, your son wishes to lead the troops north to quell the rebellion for the country. The entire court was stunned. The second prince grew up in the palace. He can barely even ride a horse. So what war could he possibly fight? Yet the emperor is actually considering it. Because everyone can see the second prince's true objective, he wants to use this war to seize military power. Once he has military power, his position as crown prince will be secure. My father could sit still no longer. Late at night, the Su manor, Yanzhou. If the second prince seizes military power, the Su family is finished. Father, please don't worry. How can we not be anxious? If he were to lead 200,000 troops out, he won't be able to lead them. My father looked at me. His highness has already made arrangements. You're talking about the third prince? My father frowned. He's just an idle prince. What could he possibly arrange? Father, let me ask you a question. Who was the first to bring the news of the northern barbarians invading the border to the palace? It seems it was the Ministry of War. Who in the Ministry of War? My father fell silent. Vice Minister of the Ministry of War, Pei Qing. He is His Highness's man. What? The news is real, but the timing of its release is controlled by His Highness. The second prince asked to lead the campaign first, but His Highness has already prepared a complete battle plan behind the scenes. At tomorrow's court assembly, the emperor will ask who can present a strategy. The second prince will not have one. Who will take it? His Highness has asked someone to take it for him. Who? You. At the morning court the next day, the second prince spoke fervently for half an hour. He said many impassioned words. Not a single sentence touched upon specific arrangements. After listening, the emperor's expression remained impassive. Qingjin, you say we should send troops. Where will the soldiers come from? Where will the provisions be transported from? Which route will we take? What are the advantages of the barbarian cavalry? How will our army respond? The second prince stammered. I will discuss it further upon my return. Discuss? The people in the border cities are waiting for you to discuss? The emperor's voice turned cold. The entire hall fell silent. Just then, my father stepped forward. Your Majesty, I have a plan. He drew a scroll from his sleeve and presented it with both hands. The emperor unfolded it to examine it carefully. He looked at it for the time it takes half a stick of incense to burn. He raised his head, his gaze settling on my father's face. General Su, this plan, it is the result of my deliberations in recent days. I am familiar with the terrain of the northern frontier, and I am also clear on the barbarians' tactics. Dispatch 30,000 light cavalry from the Northwest Army. Take the Wuling Trail. Circle around to the barbarians' rear, and cut off their supply lines. On the front, deploy infantry formations to delay them. Once the supply lines are severed, the barbarians will retreat without a fight. Will 30,000 light cavalry be enough? It will suffice. Although the barbarians have mobilized their entire forces, appearing to number 100,000, there are actually only 40,000 who are truly capable of fighting. The rest are herdsmen filling the ranks. Once the supply lines are cut, they will surely retreat within 3 days. The emperor placed the document on the desk. Approved. The second prince's face turned livid. He glanced at Su Taizhan, then looked again at Xiao Qingyan, who was standing in the corner, head lowered and silent. Xiao Qingyan never spoke. From beginning to end, no one noticed him. After the court session adjourned, the second prince intercepted my father on the imperial steps. General Su, impressive tactics. How long have you been preparing this plan? My father remained expressionless. 20 years. The second prince stormed off, flinging his sleeves. The pacification of the northern frontier proceeded smoothly. My father did not go personally. Instead, he dispatched Vice General Lin Chong to lead the troops. 30,000 light cavalry circled around to cut off the supply lines, and the barbarians retreated in just 2 days. It was a day faster than expected. On the day the news of victory reached the capital, the emperor was overjoyed and rewarded the Su family with 1,000 taels of gold. The second prince's face grew even darker. This battle not only failed to secure him military command, but instead added another layer of military merit to the Su family. Meanwhile, Xiao Qingyan, the true architect behind the scheme, remained in the third prince's residence, sipping tea and reading his book, with no one paying him any heed. I took a bowl of lotus seed soup and went to the front hall. He was reading a secret letter. Seeing me arrive, he tucked the letter into his sleeve. Don't hide it. I placed the lotus seed soup on the table. Is it a letter from Pei Qing? He looked at me, saying nothing. Although the northern frontier repelled the enemy, the barbarians haven't been severely weakened. Come spring next year, they will return. Is your highness laying out the second step of the plan? He picked up the bowl and took a sip. The lotus seed soup is quite good. Don't change the subject. I'm not changing the subject. He put down the bowl. The lotus seed soup you made is indeed good. Better than what the imperial chefs make. I took a deep breath. No, I couldn't take a deep breath. I calmed myself down. Your Highness, I am your partner, not your cook. He finally got serious. Pei Qing sent word that the second prince has placed a newcomer in the Ministry of War. The position isn't high. He oversees the allocation of provisions. Provisions again. The second prince is fixated on provisions. Control the grain, and you control the army. He is learning from you. Learning from me? He found out about you trying to win over Zhao Wanjin. My heart sank. How much did he find out? Not much. He only knows you had a meal with Zhao Wanjin, but he doesn't know about the money. The line through Shenjinghong is still safe. What should we do? Cut it off. Cut off Zhao Wanjin? Not cut off Zhao Wanjin. Cut off the line the second prince is using to investigate you. He stood up and walked to the window. There is an advisor named Zhou Jingji under the second prince. He is his strategist. All actions against the Su family were planned by this man. Does your highness wish to deal with this man? Not deal with. Recruit him. Dig? He is the second prince's confidant. A confidant is not necessarily loyal. Before Zhou Jingji joined the second prince's staff, he served in the Hanlin Academy. His mentor was framed by the second prince. I sat down and looked at him seriously. When did your highness check these? 3 years before marrying me. 3 years. This person has been plotting for 3 years, waiting precisely for the Su family. And I am the key that unlocks the gates of the Su family. I suddenly felt that the lotus seed soup in my bowl tasted a bit bitter. I've taken on the task of digging up dirt on Zhou Jingji. Xiao Qingyan is responsible for making secret contacts, while I am responsible for approaching him directly. Zhou Jingji's wife, Nei Chang, is someone who loves excitement. After the Qianqiu festival, I've gained some reputation among the circle of noble women in the capital. I hosted an embroidery tea party and invited over a dozen titled ladies. Madame Chang was on the guest list. On the day of the tea party, Madame Chang arrived earliest. She was in her early 30s, dressed exquisitely but not ostentatiously, and her speech and demeanor were perfectly measured. I have long admired your Highness's embroidery skills. Sister Chang, you are too polite. I heard that your Mr. Zhou once pursued his studies at the Hanlin Academy. I have recently been reading a book titled River Management Strategies *, and I happen to have a few questions I would like to ask you about. Chang's eyes lit up. Lord Zhou is most accomplished in the study of river engineering. He wrote an essay titled Sanjiang Luan, but regrettably it was never published. What a pity. Another day. Please ask Lord Zhou to bring the manuscript, and I will have someone make a copy. We need to ask what Lord Zhou thinks. No rush. Whenever is convenient. After this tea gathering, the Chang family came 3 more times. Every time she came, she brought some manuscripts by Zhou Jingji. The 4th time, there was a hint of bitterness in her words. Lord Zhou serves as an advisor at the second prince's manor. They call him an advisor, but he's really no different from a servant. The second prince has a bad temper. He throws things and curses at the drop of a hat. Just last month, he even knocked out an advisor's front teeth. I poured her a cup of tea. Sister Chang, with such talent and learning, Lord Zhou shouldn't be buried in a position as a staff advisor. Chang lowered her head, her eyes reddening. But what can be done? Back then, when his teacher got into trouble, he could no longer stay in the Hanlin Academy. The second prince took him in, so he must repay his kindness. Repaying kindness and sacrificing one's life are 2 different things. Chang remained silent. When she returned, she would definitely tell Zhou Jingji these words. The seed had been sown. Wait for it to sprout. The seed sprouted faster than expected. Half a month later, Zhou Jingji passed a note through the Chang family. There were only 4 words on it, wishing to see the 3rd prince. That night, the rear gate of the 3rd prince's residence quietly opened. Zhou Jingji was dressed in gray cloth, the brim of his hat pulled low. Only Xiao Qingyan and I were in the front hall. Qin Jinghong stood guard outside the door. Zhou Jingji knelt down and paid his respects. I, Zhou Jingji, a humble commoner, bow before your highness, the 3rd prince. Sit. Xiao Qingyan's tone was flat. Zhou Jingji sat down, placed his hands on his knees, and trembled slightly. Mr. Zhou, you come to see me, aren't you afraid the second prince will find out? Afraid. But more than fear, it is unwillingness. Unwilling about what? Unwilling that all my talent and learning are making wedding clothes for a fool. Harsh words. Xiao Qingyan did not respond, simply looking at him. Zhou Jingji took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and continued. The second prince has grand ambitions but little talent, and he is stubborn and arbitrary. I was the one who planned the grain draft proposal. It should have been a steady and solid approach, advancing step by step. Yet he insisted on seeking quick success, only to startle the snake. The same was true for the campaign in the northern frontier. He didn't even know how to fight, yet he dared to volunteer. Not only did he lose face, but he also exposed the Ministry of War's strategic layout. What does any of this have to do with me? Zhou Jingji raised his head. I have spent 3 years at the second prince's manor and have thoroughly understood his hand. His people, his money, his network of connections, I can hand them all over to your highness. Conditions? 3. First, ensure my wife's safety. Second, should your highness succeed in the future, grant me a position in the Hanlin Academy. Third, he glanced at me. Redeem the reputation of my teacher. Scholar Shin. My heart skipped a beat. Scholar Shin. He shares my mother's surname. But I made no sound. Xiao Qingyan nodded. I agree to all 3 conditions. But Mr. Zhou, think carefully. Once you take this step, there is no turning back. I know. That night, Zhou Jingji brought 3 secret letters. The contents of the letter left Xiao Qingyan silent for a long time after reading them. He asked me to read them as well. The second prince had been privately casting weapons in the south for half a year. This is not a means to contend for the position of crown prince. This is rebellion. Xiao Qingyan did not immediately report the matter of the second prince privately casting weapons to the emperor. The time is not yet right. When will the time be right? Wait until his weapon is finished. I didn't quite understand. He explained a sentence. Report him now, and it is merely intent. His Majesty can pretend not to see it, since he is his own son. But wait until he finishes forging the weapons and mobilizes the troops. That will be irrefutable evidence, and no one will be able to protect him. But what if he really makes a move? He won't be able to. His weapons are hidden in the south, and moving troops north will take at least 2 months. All I need is 1 month. What to do in a month? You know. I do know. Over the past month, Xiao Qingyan did 4 things. First, have Pei-Qing intercept the second prince's official document for mobilizing troops at the Ministry of War. Second, through my father's connections, I arranged for secret sentries in the south to keep watch over the armory. Third, I won over Zhao Wenyan, the commander of the Imperial Guard. This man is the Empress Dowager's nephew and listens only to her. Fourth, I wrote a secret memorial and handed it to the Empress Dowager. After reading it, the Empress Dowager remained silent for the entire day. The next day, she summoned Xiao Qingyan. I do not know what they discussed. When Xiao Qingyan returned, he brought an edict from the Empress Dowager. The edict contained only 1 sentence: the third prince, Qingyan, is to enter the Grand Council and await orders. The Grand Council. It was the highest seat of power in the Great Jing dynasty. On the night Xiao Qingyan received that imperial edict, he broke with precedent and set a table of dishes in the front hall. He, I, and Qin Jinghong ate a quiet dinner together. After the meal, Qin Jinghong left first. The 2 of us remained. Your Highness, once you enter the Grand Council, all the officials in the court will know that you are no longer an idle prince. It makes no difference if they know. The pieces are in place. It is time to reveal our hand. That reputation of cutting the sleeve reputation is a tool. He poured a cup of wine. Use it when it's needed, and when it's not, throw it away. He pushed the wine cup in front of me. I picked it up and took a look. What does this mean? Thank you. 2 words. It's very light. I drank that glass of wine. It was so spicy I almost burst into tears. But I didn't let him see it. News that Xiao Qingyan had entered the Grand Council spread, and the capital was in an uproar. That third prince, the one rumored to be homosexual, incompetent, and a good-for-nothing, had entered the Grand Council. Everyone thought this was a momentary lapse of judgment on the Empress Dowager's part. Only the second prince knew something was amiss. He immediately went to find Zhou Jingji. But Zhou Jingji had already left the second prince's residence 3 days ago on the pretext of visiting family. What about Zhou Jingji? The second prince smashed an entire tea set in his study. His other advisor knelt on the ground, trembling with fear. In reply to your highness, Mr. Zhou said his mother-in-law is critically ill, so he has returned to Jinan to visit his family. Bullshit! Go find out! Find out where he went. Can't find him. Zhou Jingji had long since changed his identity and hidden himself in a secret chamber of Sanyu Hall. The second prince panicked. Panic leads to mistakes. His first mistake, sending men that very night to intercept and kill Zhou Jingji. The killer came up empty in an alley in the southern part of the city. Coming up empty wasn't the worst of it. The worst part was that the killer he sent out was captured alive by Qin Jinghong. A survivor. A confession. In black and white. With a thumbprint. The second prince's second mistake, he sent an urgent letter to the armory in the south. The letter was intercepted by Pei-Qing. The contents of the letter were simple: immediately transport 3,000 items into the capital. 3,000 weapons. Into the capital city. This is no longer just intent. Xiao Qingyan, holding the intercepted letters and the confession of the living captive, went to see the emperor. In the imperial study, after the emperor finished reading, his face turned ashen as paper. He remained silent for a long time. My own son is going to rebel. Xiao Qingyan knelt on the ground, saying nothing. The emperor's voice was very, very old. How do you know? Your humble son is incompetent. But I have been secretly watching second brother's movements all these years. You knew all along. Yes. Why didn't you say so earlier? Because there was no evidence. When second brother only had intentions, father would not have believed it. Now, it is in black and white. The emperor closed his eyes, passed the decree. That night, the imperial guards surrounded the residence of the second prince. The second prince, Xiao Qingjin, was imprisoned on charges of treason. No one in the entire manor escaped. On the third day after the second prince was imprisoned, the Liu clan was stripped of their titles and reduced to commoners. She knelt outside the palace gates and wept through the night, but no one paid her any heed. On the fifth day, the second prince's faction was rounded up in one fell swoop. Among the 6 ministries, 7 officials were dismissed for investigation, and 3 were thrown into the great prison. On the 7th day, the southern armory was sealed, and over 5,000 weapons and 2,000 suits of armor were discovered. The evidence is conclusive. The entire court was shaken. Yet at the center of this storm, the third prince, Xiao Qingyan, stood in the office of the Grand Council, quietly drinking tea. It was as if everything had nothing to do with him. The first imperial prince, Xiao Qingyu, had come to see him once. Third brother, regarding second brother's matter. Did you know about it long ago? Eldest brother is in poor health. Don't trouble yourself with such things. The eldest prince glanced at him, smiled bitterly, and walked away. The eldest prince knew his body wouldn't last more than a few years. As the subtitles said, dying of illness 3 years later. I don't know if I can change it, but I tried. That day, I asked Zhang, the retired imperial physician from the manor, to examine the first prince's pulse. After Zhang came out, his expression was grave. A congenital heart condition. It cannot be cured at the root. However, with proper care, extending his life by 5 to 10 years should not be a problem. I handed the prescription to the first prince's consort, Lady Zhao. Zhao held the prescription and looked at me for a long time. Third sister-in-law, why are you helping us? Eldest sister-in-law has treated me well. That day at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, she was the only one who spoke a sincere word to me. Zhao's tears fell. Thank you. What I didn't say is, the first prince being alive is to Xiao Qingyan's advantage. The court needs a prince who appears qualified to contend for the heir-apparent position. To divert the emperor's attention from Xiao Qingyan, the first prince lingering on an illness is more useful than if he were dead. I haven't told anyone about this, including Xiao Qingyan. Some things don't need to be said. Just do it. The case of the second prince was tried for a full month. The result, Xiao Qingjin was stripped of his title and reduced to a commoner, imprisoned in the imperial mausoleum, forbidden to leave for life. Lady Lu was sent to the cold palace. Lady He was exiled to the frontier. On the day of the verdict, I sat in the garden of the third prince's residence, while Suizhu peeled melon seeds beside me. Miss, the second prince is finished. Finished. Then are we safe? I looked at the patch of Chinese cabbage in the courtyard and thought for a moment. Safe for now. For now. Because the real opponent was never the second prince. It is the emperor. The second prince intends to rebel, and the emperor is furious. But the person the emperor fears most has always been my father. A general who holds an army of 200,000 men is a ticking time bomb, no matter which side he stands on. Xiao Qingyan knows this too. That night, he came to the East Wing. This was already his many-th time coming. I don't know when it started, but his visits to the East Wing became more frequent. Sometimes to discuss business, sometimes just to sit for a while, have a cup of tea, and then leave. Su Yanzhao. The first time you called my full name. It is time to hand over your father's military power. I set down the needlework in my hands. How much? Half. 100,000 men to the imperial court, and 100,000 to remain in the Su family's hands. Before, I said 30%. 30% is too little. Your father keeps 100,000 men in hand, so His Majesty can be at ease, and the court can remain stable. With 100,000 men in hand, the Su family won't be easily bullied. I thought for a while. I'll go talk to my father. Will he agree? He listens to me. Xiao Qingyan glanced at me. The corners of his mouth twitched. That was the first time I saw him smile. Not a sneer, a mock, or a bitter smile. It was a genuine, faint, warm smile. Only for an instant. But I remembered it. I returned to the Su manor. I talked with my father in the study all night. My father was unwilling at first. Hand over 100,000 people? Do you know what you are saying? That is the foundation of the Su family. Father, our foundation is not soldiers, but the hearts of the people. The imperial court will sooner or later cut off provisions for 200,000 troops. Rather than waiting for the emperor to strip us of our power, we should voluntarily hand them over. What we give up is the army. What we gain in return is trust. Trust? How much is the emperor's trust worth? It is not the emperor's trust. It is the trust of the people under heaven. My father remained silent for a long time. He held the teacup, his hands trembling slightly. Yan Zhao, you've grown up. Father, I grew up long ago. The year mother left. I grew up. My father set down his teacup with a soft clink. All right. I'll listen to you. 10 days later, Su Taizhan submitted a memorial to the imperial court, voluntarily relinquishing command over 100,000 troops. The court and the public were shaken. No one expected General Su to take this step. In the imperial study, the emperor read the memorial 3 times and remained silent for a long time. In the end, he only wrote 2 words, approved. He then appointed Su Taizhan as Grand Commandant and bestowed upon him the Iron Certificate with red script. The Iron Certificate with red script, the Golden Medal of Immunity. The Su family exchanged the military command of 100,000 troops for a single Golden Medal of Immunity and the empty title of Grand Commandant. It looks like a loss. But what does the pardon mean? It means the lives of the Su family are guaranteed. With 100,000 soldiers in hand, it is enough to protect themselves. Most importantly, the emperor can finally get a peaceful night's sleep. An emperor who can sleep peacefully will not be thinking about turning his blade against his subjects. On the day the title was bestowed, Xiao Qingyan stood in the court hall and did not say a single word the entire time. But everyone knew that this move was his doing. In the spring of the 2nd year after the Su family handed over military power, the emperor established the crown prince. It was not the first imperial prince. It was the 3rd prince, Xiao Qingyan. On the day the imperial edict was read, I stood in the main hall of the 3rd prince's residence, the eastern palace of the crown prince, wearing the newly made crown princess's ceremonial robes. Sueju arranged my skirt for me, weeping as she did so. Miss. No, Your Highness the Crown Princess. You have finally made it through. Stop crying. Your makeup is going to run. Outside, the sound of firecrackers filled the air. Qin Jinghong stood at the palace entrance, dressed in a brand new guard uniform, with a different sword at his waist. He nodded at me. Crown Princess. This address of Crown Princess was spoken with wholehearted willingness. That night, a banquet was held in the Eastern Palace, with all officials offering congratulations. After the banquet dispersed, only the 2 of us remained in the vast sleeping chamber. Xiao Qingyan changed into his casual clothes and sat at the table. I sat on the other side. The layout was just like that of our wedding night over a year ago. Only this time, he didn't say, I won't lift the veil. Su Yanzhao. Do you know when I first noticed you? When? The day consorts were chosen in the imperial study. The 3 princes stood before you, and everyone thought you would choose the eldest or the second. Yet you chose me. What were you thinking back then? I was wondering if this woman was stupid. And then? Later I realized you're even sharper than me. I smiled. He smiled too. We just sat there facing each other, smiling for a while. Then he stood up and walked over to me. Do you remember what I said on our wedding night? I remember. You said we wouldn't interfere with each other, and we'd each take what we need. That statement is void. What do you mean? He reached out his hand, very slowly, very earnestly. Su Yen Zhao, starting today, we are no longer partners. I looked at his hand. That hand was not cold. It's never cold. I place my hand on it. Okay. 10 years later. Jingyuan year 10. Spring. It has been 8 years since the new emperor, Xiao Qingyan, ascended the throne. In his 8 years on the throne, the northern borders have been peaceful, the south prosperous, and the realm at peace. History books record him as Arister of the dynasty. The common people call him the Emperor of Peace. Few people knew that the daily headache of this peaceful emperor was not state affairs, but that his empress refused to stay in the palace. Your Majesty, Her Majesty the Empress has left the palace again, the eunuch Fuan reported with great caution. Xiao Qingyan's hand did not stop as he annotated the memorials. Where did you go? To Zhao Wanjin's grain shop in the south of the city. You went there again. Yes. Her Majesty the Queen said that the price of new rice from Jiangnan has risen 3 cash compared to last year, and she is going to reason with Zhao Wanjin. Xiao Qingyan put down his pen. 3 won. 3 won. The Empress is arguing with someone over 3 won. Yes. He rubbed the center of his brow. Pay her no mind. Just let Shen Jinghong follow along. Inside the grain shop in the south of the city, I was slapping the counter of Zhao Wanjin. Boss Zhao, how many years have we been doing business together? Zhao Wanjin pulled a long face. In reply to Her Majesty the Empress, it has been 11 years. 11 years of friendship. And you raise my price by 3 coins? Your Majesty, prices really have gone up this year. Shipping is expensive. If the shipping costs are high, seek reimbursement from the Ministry of Revenue. I have been keeping an eye on this year's river maintenance appropriations. Clearly, 10% of the shipping costs were saved. And yet, you had the nerve to pocket the money that was saved. Zhao Wanjin fell to his knees. Your Ladyship, please see clearly. See clearly what? Bring it back. A unified price nationwide. Yes. 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 I turned and walked out of the grain shop, with Shen Jinghong following behind me. Your Majesty, is a matter of 3 copper coins worth your personal visit? It is. 10 million share of grain nationwide. An increase of 3 copper coins per share amounts to 30,000 taels of silver. 30,000 taels of silver is enough to provide a month's provisions and pay for the northern border garrison. Tell me, is it worth it or not? Shen Jinghong fell silent. I boarded the carriage and let down the curtain. Suizhu was already waiting inside. She is now a female official in the Palace of Domestic Affairs, dressed smartly and spiritedly, looking like a completely different person from the crybaby girl she was back then. Miss, your Ladyship, Grand Commandant Su has entered the palace today. My father is here? He says he has come to see the little prince. I smiled. My father has hardly ever held me in his life, yet he holds his grandson every day. The carriage reached the palace gates, and from afar, I saw someone standing there, clad in a dragon robe and a golden crown. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The monarch of the nation, waiting at the palace gates for his queen to return home. I stepped off the carriage and walked up to him. Why has your Majesty come out? I heard you went to have a quarrel with Zhao Wanjin. We didn't quarrel. It was a normal business negotiation. He looked at me with a smile in his eyes. 3 pennies. 3 pennies are very important. Important. He turned and walked side by side with me into the palace. After all, when you married me back then, you wouldn't even let a 3-penny difference in the price of winter charcoal slip by. I lowered my head and smiled. After walking a few steps, he suddenly said, Su Yen Zhao. Back then in the imperial study, when you chose me, did you truly see something? I looked up at him. The spring light was just right, and the peach blossoms on the palace walls had bloomed. No, I said. I just thought you looked pleasing to my eye. He smiled. I laughed too.